and people logging in from other places on the globe, Namaste from India. It is my proud privilege to welcome all the esteemed dignitaries, respected seniors, learned colleagues, and dear friends to this inaugural function of the Stillbirth Society of India.
It's okay.
This society was born out of a deep sense of anguish and earnest desire to do something in order to change the stillbirth statistics of India and to improve the quality of care that we provide. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. We are fortunate to have such leaders amongst us. This evening, we will be witness to the coming together of healthcare professionals, researchers, and caregivers in a sincere attempt to ignite hope in the lives of bereaved parents. On behalf of the Stillbirth Society of India, I feel both humbled and very privileged to welcome, introduce, and invite our dignitaries for today to the virtual dais. I would first welcome our chief guest for this inaugural program, Dr. Sumita Ghosh. She is the Additional Commissioner in Charge, Child Health, Adolescent Health, Safe Abortion Services, Aspirational District Program, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. It is indeed a great honor, ma'am, to have you amongst us today. I would now like to welcome our guest of honor for today, Dr. Padmini Kashyap. She is the Assistant Commissioner in the Maternal Health Division in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. We feel honored to have you, madam. I would now like to welcome our keynote speaker, Ms. Suzanne Hopkins-Leisure, who's more than just an inspiration for us through her incredible journey from being a bereaved parent to the board chair of the International Stillbirth Alliance. On behalf of the Stillbirth Society of India, I welcome you to this inaugural program. Coming together is a beginning, working together is progress, and staying together is success. It was indeed this mantra of working together that has brought us where we are today. I take this privilege to welcome our president, Dr. Neelam Agarwal. She's a lady of a few words, but her actions speak louder than words. Over the years, we in India have watched her with awe and admiration for the high energy potential that she has for so many professional activities. I would also like to welcome our Vice President, Dr. Nuzhat Aziz. Her keen interest to interact and motivate, teach and train young obstetricians and gynecologists is something that needs to be emulated by all of us. I would also like to welcome Dr. Tamkeen Khan, Secretary of our society, whose vision and deep commitment to the cause have made it all possible. So without much ado, I take this privilege to invite our president, Dr. Neelam Agarwal. It is my honor to invite you, ma'am, to give your presidential address.
Thank you, Asna. Thank you. I'm really humbled by your words. Thank you. Can I share my screen? Yeah.
Dr. Neelam Agarwal is our founder president. She's a professor in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Postgraduate Institute of Medical Education and Research, Chandigarh. She has also been the president of the Indian Menopause Society 2019-20. She's a senior board member, BMC Women's Health, chief editor 2016-2018, Journal of Midlife Health, a nodal person, WHO SEAR Stillbirth Review, NBBD. Her areas of interest include high-risk pregnancy, perinatal health, and menopausal health. Welcome, ma'am.
Thanks once again. A very good evening, everyone. Chief guest, Dr. Sumita Ghosh, guest of honor, Dr. Padmini, ISA board chair, Zan, my own team of Stillbirth Society of India, ladies and gentlemen. It's my proud privilege today to be here with you all. And in fact, the other day when Dr. Tamkeen told me about this, registering this formal organization, Stillbirth Society of India, and asked me to become the first president, I was so excited to know about this formal organization dedicated to the cause of stillbirth. But little did I know at that time that it's going to be a long, tedious, untraveled journey navigating the uncharted waters. But anyways, I'm not alone in my journey. I have a very enthusiastic and passionate team with me. So stillbirth is a global problem with around 98% of the problem in the low and middle income countries. And with the irony that most stillbirths, wherever they occur, they are absent from that country records. So out of all the global births in India, less than a second, one stillborn baby is born, and it affects around more than 2.5 million families each year, year after year. And why we are losing so many babies before they take the first breath? And why our progress in reducing stillbirth rate is so slow? The answer is simple: because we don't see the problem. Problem is not in front of our eyes. Because stillbirths are absent from the global targets. There are no preventive interventions planned for the stillbirths because they are not seen. Because whatever is not seen, whatever is out of sight, that is out of mind. And that is very true for the stillbirths also. And there is a mismatch of burden to action because they are not seen. There are no actions, no plans, no programs. Really, so far, there have been none. Because of there being a hidden reality, because of the social taboos and lack of data, so stillbirths are not seen anywhere. Even the Lancet Stillbirth series, first of all in 2011, a decade back, it pointed out to the hidden reality of stillbirth, and that is more in the middle income and low income countries. So then after this Lancet Stillbirth series 2011, there was an international awakening from the various quarters globally, and there came a call to action for stillbirth and every neonate matters, global every neonate action plan, where global community thought that the goal by 2030 will be for reduction of stillbirth rate by 50% from the 2008. And for countries where stillbirth rate is already less than 5, there to eliminate all preventable deaths. So in India, in response to this global INAP plan was launched in 2014, where the target was to have stillbirth rate reduced to less than 10. That is a single digit stillbirth rate by the INAP plan. And Stillbirth Society is the first step being taken by Dr. Tamkin and team in this direction. And the motto is preventing death before birth. This is a Stillbirth Society of India, and it's already affiliated to the International Stillbirth Alliance. So this is the a long journey, but even thousands miles long journey starts with a single step, and we have already started it. And I'm not alone in this journey. I have this passionate, enthusiastic, and very hardworking team. Since February, Dr. Tamkin and her team, they have been working tirelessly in establishing this society. And this INAP is less than reduction of stillbirths as well as neonatal deaths to less than 10 by 2030. So vision of our Stillbirth Society of India is to achieve that INAP, to visualize India with achievement of that INAP goal, as well as to take care of the families who are bereaved by those stillbirths. And mission of the society is to reduce the incidence and impact of stillbirths and prevention of as many stillbirths as possible after 28 weeks of gestation. And this is to be made possible by improving the quality of care, by advocacy and quality research, timely identification, and developing interventions in pregnancies who are at risk of stillbirth. And if a stillbirth occurs, to take care of those families by providing them respectful bereavement care. because grief of a stillbirth is unlike any other form of grief. The months of excitement and expectation, planning, eager questions, and the drama of labor, all culminating into a deaf silence. And so this is incomprehensible. So for this, there has been a parent voice initiative project being already undertaken by us since January 2021. Since parent voices are largely absent from globally, from the global stillbirth related advocacy. So this has been a project from PMNCH, and we have had PVI India toolkit under this to raise the participation of parents bereaved by stillbirth and to strengthen the advocacy for stillbirth prevention. Bereavement support is the goal of that PVI advocacy project. But in India, PVI India toolkit is an advocacy toolkit. First of all, we have prepared it for sensitization of the healthcare providers. And once we have had this toolkit has been developed already in the first phase. And in the second phase, by collaboration with WHO, CRO, and ISA, we are going to revise this toolkit for adaptation in our context after incorporating expectations and needs of our own parents. So for stillbirth prevention and care of the bereaved families, we have to have stillbirth awareness always in our hearts. And it's not a difficult job, as according to our President Abdul Kalam, who was famous for his quotes. So attitude is the only thing that makes all the difference. Problems are common all over, but it is the attitude which makes the difference. And thank you. And this, we are, day after is our Independence Day. I wish you all a very happy Independence Day and wish that our women, our country gets free from as much as preventable stillbirths as it can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much for those very encouraging words and the insight and your vision for the future. May I now invite our Vice President, Dr. Nusrat Aziz, to share her thoughts.
Thank you, Dr. Asna. Will it be possible for me to share if the other person, if the share screening is yes? Thank you.
Dr. Nusrat Aziz is the Vice President of the Stillbirth Society of India. She's a consultant obstetrician at the Fernandez Hospital, Hyderabad. Her current special interests are high-risk obstetrics, protocols, teaching, training, prevention of stillbirths, maternal morbidity reduction, and customized growth charts. Dr. Nusrat Aziz, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Asna. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Before I start the topic that was given to me as intrapartum stillbirth, I would like to thank each one of you and my gratitude for the founders, Dr. Tankeen and her team, Dr. Neelam Agarwal, for having given me this opportunity to be the Vice President. It's indeed a privilege, and I look forward to working with all of you on this very important. This was an area which was very close to my heart for quite a lot of years. So over the next few minutes, I think I've been given 10 minutes, intrapartum stillbirth. By definition, it is a baby that was alive at the onset of labor, and then you have a stillbirth later, loses its life. India's stillbirth rate stands at around 13.9 in 2019, 40% intrapartum. But if we take a look at the developed countries and the developing countries, there's a huge difference in the proportion of intrapartum stillbirth. And that allows you to look at it with the scope that these are preventable, avoidable, if the resources can be there. Are there any risk factors? Are there any women who can be identified that this woman would be at risk factors? There are plenty, we all know them. We have worked with all of these risk factors. But if you evaluate each case, there is a series of delays that you find. And these delays are similar to those of maternal death. And if you want to correct these delays, you will have to start improving care in the hospitals, mobilization of community, and transport facilities as three main prongs, and then move forward. But one of the factors that's very important that all of us should remember whenever we are putting up a plan for prevention of stillbirths is the association of wealth and intrapartum stillbirths. You won't find rich and affluent people having a higher incidence, but you'll have the poorest having the maximum risk. And this dose relationship for intrapartum stillbirths is absolutely heartbreaking sometimes, because those who have the least resources or the socioeconomic strata is very poor, they are the ones who suffer most. Are there any interventions that can reduce intrapartum stillbirths? There are plenty of interventions that have been studied, but most important is availability of cesarean section facilities. Those facilities which do not have the ability to do cesarean section, absent or inadequate, have a delayed obstetric care. And you will find that where the cesarean section is too less, you will find that intrapartum stillbirths are very high. This problem does not occur for developed countries, but only for developing countries, where this procedure or life-saving procedure there is a delay in care. The same thing holds for instrumental delivery or assisted birth. When the team is not trained, when there is reluctance to put up a vacuum or a forceps, and you find that either you have an asphyxiated baby at the end of the journey, or you may have a stillbirth. At this point of time, I would just like you to share our story of stillbirth reduction at Fernandez Hospital. We are a 300-bed single specialty obgyn and neonatology, and we do about 10,000 births annually. Our stillbirth rate has had a 40% reduction in the past 1 decade. Today, we stand at, for more than 28 weeks, we stand for 2.9 per thousand, and for more than 24 weeks, we stand for 4.2 per thousand for singleton booked population. Now, this is a journey that has been through the growth assessment protocol from Perinatal Institute, and with a parallel increase in SGA detection rate in antenatal care. But it's also very important for us to understand that the intrapartum stillbirths proportion is, we have on an average 1 in a year, that is 1 in 10,000, or max 2 in a year. And sometimes if we are lucky, we don't have any intrapartum stillbirth in a year, and that would be our target or achievement that would be there. Now, moving forward with this is how we have done the changes, and they are very simple. They are basically protocol-based and a kind of step ladder-based intervention. Do we have a risk assessment, risk category assessment at admission? How do we call a low-risk mother and a high-risk mother? So we have taken this from Malaysia and incorporated it as an electronic kind of a sheet. Without doing this sheet, you can't move forward, because a woman has to be classified as either high risk or low risk. Similarly, for SGA assessment or for fetal growth, we have taken this assessment pathway from the NICE guidelines, and also incorporated the stillbirth prevention care bundle. We have to look at all the elements that I mentioned over here and see whether all the elements are being carried out in its entirety in your hospital. The most important variable or failure of intrapartum fetal monitoring leads to intrapartum stillbirth. And what is very important for all of us to understand is the most important tool over here is not CTG, but intermittent auscultation. Majority of the women who are low risk, have to be monitored with intermittent auscultation, and with proper training and proper application, we can identify fetal distress in the vast majority, where small proportion would require electronic fetal monitoring. The minute we say intermittent auscultation, everyone starts talking, saying we don't have staff, we can't do one-to-one monitoring. What we have done at Fernandez is we have used nursing aides and taught them very specific tasks and have an excellent support. So all the CTGs in the hospital are done by these people. We make it mandatory to have an fetal monitoring training and certification. In Fernandez, we have been using for the past decade K2MS certification for obstetric emergencies as well as fetal monitoring. Is your entire team certified for obstetric emergency care? Because this matters a lot when you're talking about every member of your team being capable and being a strong link in your chain. We don't want a weak person in the entire pathway, so that you will have a sudden collapse of your protocols. So any kind of certification is acceptable, whether it's from also or for K2MS, but you should have a certification. Oxytocin is the most dangerous drug for the baby on the labor ward, especially when the baby is in labor. Do we have an oxytocin bundle? Do we have indications for oxytocin use? What kind of an infusion regimen do you use? Do you use a high dose regimen or a low dose regimen? Do you have the concept of intrauterine resuscitation? This is important whenever you're using oxytocin. Do you have tocolytic on your labor ward? Do you have terbutaline? Do you have nitroglycerin? But create a kind of a crash cesarean section drill, which would be utilizing your own resources, your own setup, the people who are there manning the labor ward, as well as the theater, as well as neonatal intensive unit, so that your decision to delivery interval is on an average, okay, less than 30 minutes. At Fernandez Hospital, we are at 20 minutes for decision to delivery interval for a cot prolapse. Now, very important to remember that no cost interventions. These are the three ones, that is a companion in labor, hydration and nutrition, upright position, were the three most important interventions that were known to be associated with positive outcome. Midwives save lives, both women as well as the baby's lives. We started the midwifery training in 2011 as an in-house project. And today we have a big team. 80% of our low-risk mothers are delivered by the midwifery team, very capable and professional in their work. It's also very essential that we need to promote a culture of introspection, no blame. Every baby counts, every baby has to be introspected, and then review our obstetric care system so that the next baby will not have an insult if there was an avoidable factor. I would like to conclude by saying fetal deaths in labor should be a quality indicator for obstetric care for every institution. It is possible to prevent intrapartum stillbirths. We need practical, preventable solutions that can be applied to primary health center, to tertiary, secondary, any health center, locally, nationally, and globally. And if we can all get together and work on it, I'm sure we will be able to avoid intrapartum stillbirths as a priority for the Stillbirth Society of India as a target. Thank you so much for giving me this time and opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Nuzhat. That was indeed a very inspiring and thought-provoking talk. I now invite Dr. Tamkeen Khan, our founder secretary, to share her vision with us. Dr. Tamkeen is a consultant professor in the Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. She has more than 100 publications to her credit. And she is a peer reviewer for 6 journals, including the BMJ case reports. She's a national mentor quality improvement Lakshya. Her areas of interest include fetal medicine and high-risk pregnancy, medical humanities, emergency obstetric care, and she's a champion for respectful maternity care and birth companion in labor. Dr. Tamkeen.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Asna, for that introduction. I'll be introducing our society, the committees, and our future plans to everybody. Sometimes questions are more important than answers. So one question is, what does stillbirth look like for us, for Indians? As a senior resident, walking into the labor room, I heard a ward attendant telling a bereaved father waiting for his stillborn baby to be handed over to him, "Look, the labor room is so busy. Should I worry about the live babies, or should I waste time in handing over your dead baby?" I realized the complete lack of empathy and dignity in death. One of my patients was sent for a confirmatory sonography for an IUFD. The sonologist did not inform her about the fetal death and asked her to rush back to me, saying that your baby is in danger. The poor lady came rushing back to me in the hope and desperation that the baby could be saved. The complete lack of training in breaking bad news and dealing with grief in healthcare workers in India hit me then. A lady with previous 2 stillborns came to us with a 3rd IUFD. After delivery, we encourage her relatives to allow her to hold the baby. For those who have logged in from across continents, usually in India, the mother is neither told about the stillbirth nor encouraged to hold the baby or make any connections with the baby. The reaction of the mother on holding her baby was priceless. "Ma'am, Even after delivering 2 babies, I never felt like a mother. Today, though I'll not be taking my baby home, I feel like a mother. I realize the absolute lack of training of healthcare workers in bereavement care. Dr. Neelam and Dr. Nuzhat have been talking about the focus on stillbirths and the advocacy by the Lancet editorial team, especially the chief editor, Richard Hurton, who says that he had no idea that stillbirth was such a huge problem in some of the poorest of the nations. They published 5 fantastic papers, along with a press launch, a conference, and a campaign that triggered WHO to ask countries to publish their stillbirth data. It affected me a lot. The series helped me focus on doing something concrete. Dr. Asna Ashraf and Dr. Aisha Ahmed, who shared my passion, helped prepare the documents, crystallizing our mission, vision, and objectives. Professor Shipra Kamar, Dr. Deepika Sinha, Dr. Nafis, Dr. Bushra were other 7 enthusiastic founding members. The society was registered on 11th February, and Dr. Asna completed the affiliation to the International Stillbirth Alliance. It is, I would want to inform you, the first registered society in India and Southeast Asia. Professor Neil Agarwal, our dynamic leader from PGI Chandigarh, already working with the International Stillbirth Alliance on Parents' Voice Initiative, agreed to take over the leadership and guidance role as the president of the society. Dr. Nuzhat Aziz from Fernandez Hospital, working passionately for improving intrapartum quality of care and prevention of stillbirths, very kindly agreed to our vice president. The society shall ever be grateful to them for this. We have an international advisory board with great names who have worked in this field. Dr. Rakhi Randona, Susanna is here with us, MS Claire Story. Then we have some great patrons who have all their life been working to improve mothers' health. Dr. Evita Fernandez, Dr. Pratima Mittal, thank you so much for being our patrons. Our National Advisory Board, I'm happy to say Dr. Vijay Kumar Izach from the renowned Swachh Foundation, Dr. Reva Tripathi, Dr. Lakbir, Dr. Archana, Dr. Tarini, Dr. Vanita Suri, and Dr. Yashodhara Pradeep. You already know our board members. Now, finding some of the answers that we have been looking for. The first thing that we want to do is that we want to have a stillbirth registry and guidelines. And for that, we have chosen a galaxy of people who are leading currently at different institutions. And we have chosen institutions which are high output institutions. And people are passionate. These people that we have chosen are passionate about women's health. Then the second is that we want to evaluate and develop management and monitoring protocols for India. And I give you an example that in spite of so many studies on fetal movement counting for assessment of fetal well-being, we have no answers from Cochrane. So we are looking for evidence-based low-cost solutions. For example, whether fetal movement count will really prevent stillbirths. And we have some great researchers on board. We have Dr. Aparna, Dr. Amita, Dr. Bharti, Dr. Manju Puri, Dr. Neelam Agarwal herself, Dr. Anita Kaul, Dr. Nuzhat, Dr. Pratima Mittal, Dr. Shubha Phatke, myself, and Dr. Umaram. Thank you very much for joining us. We are going to have a monthly focus on individual causes of stillbirth. And we have made committees for that. So one cause every month. The responsibility of that committee is going to be compilation and presentation of Indian data to establish knowledge gaps and make recommendations for the evolving guidelines, and a focus newsletter for educating the healthcare workers about that particular cause for that particular month on focus will be done. So we have various committees. Any committee you can think of, any cause of stillbirth, it is there. And it is being led for, the people who have worked passionately for more than 25 years. Apart from that, thank you, Dr. Padmini, for telling us that there should be a committee for intrapartum, separate committee for interpartum stillbirths, and Dr. Aruna Nigam is there to help us. Then we have emerging causes of stillbirths, committees for that, ART, multiple gestation, led by Dr. Aparna, and other causes. Then we have also a committee on maternal obesity and endocrine disorders. Dr. Neelam, you know, she's been working passionately for giving a voice to parents, and she's developing toolkit with her team and her whole team. Yeah. And then lastly, one or two more things that we are going to do. We all know the importance of placenta. It is the witness, it's a historical record of intrauterine events, providing valuable information on the cause and timing of adverse events. It's a low-cost method and helps establish the cause of stillbirth without encroaching on cultural and religious sentiments of families like autopsy. But the problem is that we have few trained pathologists in perinatal pathology. The aim of SBSI is to train pathologists all over India. And we have some very enthusiastic people, Dr. Sunil Jaiman, Professor Nandita Kakkar from PGI. They have promised to hold online workshops and training modules for training all pathologists almost at every center in perinatal pathology. So this agenda is one of the leading agendas on our mind. Then prevention through awareness and advocacy. We have stillbirth prevention advocacy group, Dr. Seema Tandon, Dr. Preeti Kumar, you know what work she's doing in Safe Motherhood Committee, Dr. Jawad Suri from WHO, Committee for Public Awareness, Dr. Sadhana Gupta, she's done a lot of work in rural India, Dr. Shaila Jamal, we all know her, her enthusiasm and her way of dealing with things, and we have a separate committee for information technology. And lastly, the rainbow clinics and pregnancies. We understand the trauma of families going back home without a baby. 70% of these families will have another baby within the next year. These pregnancies are 5 times more likely to end in a stillbirth or a preterm birth, whether because of natural causes or because of the obstetrician distress and agony. Parents of these babies need extra support. Dr. Alexander Hazel, who was the first person to develop this concept, has promised to provide support for us to starting these rainbow clinics for proper workup and support of these families. And we all know that most of the cases of stillbirth are easy to work up, except the most difficult part is the genetic workup. And we have on board Dr. Shubha Patke, Dr. Shailja, and she has also, promised support of Dr. Ratnapuri, Dr. Grisha, Dr. Deepti Saxena, and Dr. Radhna Singh. So I end with a pledge to provide the best to families with rainbow pregnancies. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow has not yet come. We have only today. Let us all begin together. Thank you so much for all the enthusiasm, passion, and support.
Thank you, Dr. Tamkeen, for enlightening us about what the future beholds for us in the society. Thank you. I now take this privilege of inviting our keynote speaker for today, Ms. Suzanne Hopkins Leisure.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. I would just like to say a few more words about you, Suzanne.
Sorry.
Suzanne is the International Stillbirth Alliance Board Chair. She has spent 25 years working on global poverty alleviation in Asia, Africa, and Central America. She's an honorary research fellow at the Mater Research Institute of the University of Queensland, Australia, and holds an MA in International Economics and Social Change and Development from Johns Hopkins University, and an MSc in Epidemiology from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. She's currently a doctoral student in epidemiology at Columbia University. Her dissertation focuses on maternal stress and stillbirth. Ms. Leisure is the mother of 3 living sons and Wilder Daniel, stillborn on July 13, 1999, with no cause found. Welcome, Ms. Suzanne.
Thank you so much to Asna, to all of you fabulous, amazing colleagues in India and beyond. I'm almost speechless with the power and the passion that you are showing today. Particularly, Tamkeen, your words are really moving me greatly. As chair of the International Stillbirth Alliance, I am so honored to be a part of this launch of the first formal registered society for stillbirth in India. So the International Stillbirth Alliance was founded almost 20 years ago by 3 bereaved mothers with a vision to not only to take a global approach to stillbirth prevention and support, but a vision to link researchers together with clinicians, together with bereaved parents. And today, ISA is active in many countries around the world. You can see this map, which shows some of the places where our members are located and some of the additional countries where we have ongoing work. And we, as you've heard from Neelam and Tamkin, we are privileged to work with our wonderful partners in India, the Postgraduate Institute for Medical Research and Education in Chandigarh, with the Public Health Foundation of India, with Survival for Women and Children Foundation, and we look forward very much to working with the Stillbirth Society of India. Our mission is to focus on raising awareness and promoting global collaboration for prevention of stillbirth and newborn death and provision of care for all those affected. So, excuse me. So I work on stillbirth because I'm a mother. This is me in 1999. I was pregnant with my first child. I was living in Vietnam at the time, and you can see how excited and joyful I am at the oncoming birth. This is me on July 13th, 1999. I am holding my first son, Wilder Daniel Lesher. He was stillborn at 38.5 weeks, just 11 days before his due date. This was after a perfect pregnancy and no cause was ever found. I can tell you that I feel personally and firsthand the grief of stillbirth and also how long that grief can last. My son was born 22 years ago and I still can perceive that loss just beneath the surface. So Wilder is who is driving my passion for this work. So we all know how great the burden of stillbirth is globally, in my country, in the US, and certainly in India. And there are many factors that are conspiring against us. Perhaps the most important of these factors, as Neelam mentioned, is the persistent invisibility of stillbirth. This is a word cloud that many of you have seen. It's from the 2016 Lancet series on stillbirth, and it shows the 500 most commonly used words in a group of key United Nations global health reports. You can hardly see the word stillbirth. Stillbirth was excluded from the Millennium Development Goals in the year 2000, and stillbirth is still excluded from the Sustainable Development Goals that were launched in the year 2015. And yet, we know that the majority of stillbirths can be prevented. This is a tractable issue, excuse me. As we've heard already, in many parts of the world, including in India, about half of stillbirths occur intrapartum. Virtually all of these can be prevented with high quality available emergency obstetric care, but there are many other interventions that can also prevent stillbirth, not only intrapartum stillbirths, but also antepartum stillbirths. You see a few of these listed here. Some of them are very well known: folic acid during pregnancy, treating your bed nets to prevent malaria, and so on. Many of the interventions that can prevent stillbirth, however, are high-level policy issues that relate to equity and to providing an opportunity for our young women, ensuring that there is no exposure to environmental toxins, no child marriage, ending domestic violence, and an issue that's particularly relevant for my own country, ending structural racism. Even in high-income countries, stillbirth rates are too high. This is a chart that shows the stillbirth rates on the right-hand side of about 50 high-income countries and upper middle-income countries. And the first thing to note is what the wide variation is in stillbirth rates, from nearly 9 per 1,000 total births in Ukraine. But what's most important really is to look at the lowest global rate, and that is in Iceland. It's just 1.3 per 1,000 total births. There is no biological reason for any country to have a higher rate than this. And I always think about that in the back of my mind when I think about what the global goal really should be. Yet shockingly, as you can see there, and as we know, there is still persistent fatalism on the part of clinicians about whether stillbirth is really preventable. This is a chart, it's actually rather old now and it needs to be updated, showing that many clinicians believe stillbirth is always or often the natural selection of a baby never supposed to live. As Nuzhat pointed out, it's usually the marginalized and the disenfranchised who pay the price, with huge inequity, not only between countries, but also within countries in terms of stillbirth rates. In Ireland, stillbirth rates in the poorest families are 3.5 times higher than those in the wealthiest. In Australia, stillbirth rates among Aboriginal families are 50% higher than among non-Aboriginal families. And in the US, Black American stillbirth rates are double those of white Americans. In fact, this chart shows that in the US, Black American stillbirth rates today equal the stillbirth rate of white Americans 35 years ago. Inequity in stillbirth rates is a huge part of the global burden. But there isn't all bad news. The Global Strategy for Women's, Children's, and Adolescents' Health, which is the implementation arm of SDG 3 on public health, does include a stillbirth rate indicator. And the Every Newborn Action Plan, the United Nations mechanism, is supporting countries, including India, to achieve the global target of 12 per thousand births by 2030. At ISA, we have tried to take the Every Newborn Action Plan one step further. As we've already heard, in 2016, The Lancet published the Ending Preventable Stillbirths series, and this included a call to action to end preventable stillbirths and ensure respectful care for all those affected. At ISA, we have built a scorecard to track progress against each component of the call to action, and we've adapted this scorecard for various settings. And as Neelam mentioned, and others, we've also launched the Parent Voices Initiative, which includes projects here in India, as well as in Kenya, and to be soon in Australia, to build toolkits to support parents and clinicians for respectful care that is centered on parents' voices and needs. We've also worked very hard to elevate parent voices all the way to the global level. This is Christine Wangechi from Kenya. She's a stillbirth mom with no experience ever speaking on a global stage, but she was brave enough to share her story and her perspective with over 2,000 participants at the global launch of the Stillbirth Estimates by UNICEF and WHO last fall. So underpinning ISA's work is our total commitment to centering the experience and voices of bereaved parents themselves. I know from my own personal experience how invisible and silent stillbirth can make you feel. The call to action calls on countries to identify mechanisms to reduce stigma associated with stillbirth among all stakeholders. Listen to these parents' voices. Sabine, a stillbirth mom from Rwanda, says, "Hearing dehumanizing words toward my baby and myself was the worst." Chris, a stillbirth dad from the UK, says, "I want the world to know that talking to bereaved parents about their babies that have died doesn't remind us that they died. We haven't forgotten. It reminds us that they lived and that you remember them, and that's a precious gift." Priya, a stillbirth mom from the UK, says, "Cheyenne, I want the world to know and remember his name." Parents also need respectful bereavement care. Lois, a stillbirth mom from Uganda, who is pictured here with her family, says, "When they learned that I had a stillbirth, the human resources manager at my job called me to report back for work within the first week of delivery, saying that I was not entitled to maternity leave since my baby had died." Sophia from Sweden says, "Many people are unsure what to say. Sharing our experience with other parents and supporting each other was crucial for me to get through the first few years." And Oyele from Nigeria says, "The major support needed is psychological support." It is clear that there is so much that needs to be done. There are many crucial initiatives that the Stillbirth Society of India is planning to take part in and to lead, and I welcome that. A focus on equity is crucial. A focus on different causes of stillbirth is also critical, and here I would also urge the Stillbirth Society of India to consider a committee that looks at unexplained stillbirths, which make up about 30% of all stillbirths, no matter what context you're examining. parents are a critical partner and ally in the work that you all will be doing. We can see from recent research from ISA that we found over 500 organizations for supporting stillbirth in over 70 countries, but the vast majority are existing in North America and Europe, with just a tiny number in Central and Southern Asia, as you can see from this little slice of the pie. And this is why I am so thrilled and honored to be here at the start of such an important initiative with you passionate colleagues, with your variety of diverse experiences across the great nation of India, from the urban to the rural, from the north to the south and the east and the west. I know that the Stillbirth Society of India will be making critical contributions, not only to ending preventable stillbirths, but also to ensuring respectful care for all those affected. So on behalf of the International Stillbirth Alliance, and most importantly, on behalf of my own son, Wilder Daniel, I thank you so much for being able to be part of this, this landmark event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. We look forward to having a long and fruitful association between the International Stillbirth Alliance and the Stillbirth Society of India. We have a long way to go, and there is so much to be done. It is overwhelming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on, it is my proud privilege to invite our guest of honor for today, Dr. Padmini Kashyap. Dr. Padmini Kashyap is the Assistant Commissioner, Maternal Health, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. She did her DGO and DNB from New Delhi and has more than 10 years of extensive clinical experience. Her varied experience of OBS-GYN and public health helps the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare India envision and strengthen maternal health services across the country by ensuring quality healthcare services. She's looking after maternal health programs like Suman, Midwifery, Lakshya, maternal health trainings, maternal death surveillance and review. Key members from the Government of India, she's one of the key members from the Government of India who provided technical support in formulating various guidelines and documents like the scope of practice for midwifery education and nurse practitioner in midwifery, SOPs for HIV and syphilis, screening of pregnant women at VHS ND sites, collaborative framework for management of tuberculosis in pregnant women. And she's an active member of various national expert group agencies in the country and also coordinating with various APEX technical support agencies who are committed to the betterment of maternal health outcomes. Dr. Padmini Kashyap, we welcome you.
Thank you, Dr. Ashraf. So a very good morning and good evening to all the colleagues who are joining us virtually today. As we come together to mark the inaugural launch of Stillbirth Society of India, I would first take this opportunity to congratulate Dr. Neelam Agrawal, Dr. Nuzhat, Dr. Ashraf, Dr. Tamkeen Khan, and the whole of SBSI team to take up this initiative to address a very critical and a very sensitive indicator of health of RCH, which is the stillbirth rate. As a country, India has shown a remarkable improvement in most of the RCH indicators. To name it, MMR has shown a remarkable decline in last few years, and today we stand at 113 per 1 lakh live births, and we are very hopeful to achieve our SDG goals in time which has before the time which has been given to us before 2030. But one thing which actually haunts us today is the number of stillbirths, which is attributed to by the country, by India. Partly it is because the country's population is too high. It's a huge population which is actually contributing to the number of stillbirths that we have in our country. But I must say that the SRS system, which is capturing the stillbirth rate in the country, it actually stands at 4 per 1,000 births, which is not actually, in line with what the IGME says, which is a very high number which they give us. But then definitely they are acknowledging our SRS data as well. They have to go a long way in bringing down this number of stillbirths that we are having in our country. And as a part of ministry, I would say that we are working in unison, in collaboration with the sister divisions in the ministry. The reducing the stillbirth rate is very high on ministry's radar, and we are working in collaboration, and we are working towards reducing the stillbirth numbers in our country. Going forward, as we know that the intrapartum stillbirths, which is the number of intrapartum stillbirths is very high, being contributed to by the intrapartum causes of stillbirth. So I would be talking about the improving the intrapartum quality of care for preventing stillbirths and what steps the government of India has taken in this regard. Can I share my screen, please?
Sure, ma'am, you can.
I hope my slides are visible.
Yes.
Thank you. So, stillbirth has a traumatic, long-lasting impact on women and their families around the world, who often endure profound psychological suffering as well as stigma from their communities, even in high-income countries. Perhaps even more tragically, the majority of these deaths could have been avoided with high quality antenatally and during birth. I'll give the global magnitude as we say that one baby is still born every 16 seconds and nearly 4 stillbirths happen every minute. As per the estimates of IGME in 2019, an estimated 1.9 million babies were stillborn at 28 weeks of pregnancy or later. So as per the IGME, the global stillbirth rate of stands at 13.9 per 1,000 total births, although there are large variations seen across the country with which may range from between 1.4 to 32.2. And as I already mentioned, 6 countries, including India, account for half of the estimated global numbers of stillbirths and 44% of global live births. Indian scenario, as I explained, India has a huge population of 1.3 billion. And out of these, there are almost 30 million pregnancies and 26 million births annually, which are taking place. Our MMR stands at 113 per 1 lakh live births. And we have an estimated 6 lakh stillbirths occurring every year. So as per the HMIS reports in 2019-20, we had an estimated rate of stillbirth of 12.6 per 1,000 births. Although the SRS system, which is a robust survey data which comes out of it, it states our stillbirth rate to be 4 per 1,000 births, which is well endorsed by IGME. So which is much lesser than what is globally the number which has been given globally. Coming to the causes of stillbirth, before going to the causes, the data collection, the data for stillbirth is not very robust. I must say that the causes of stillbirth is also not in terms of numbers and in terms of comparison. The numbers, we do not have the numbers which are actually being captured throughout the globally. So the infections, the maternal infections in pregnancy, they account for the largest numbers, namely malaria, HIV. They account for nearly 8 to 50% as per the IGME report. Maternal disorders, especially hypertension and diabetes, may contribute to up to 10% of stillbirths. Childbirth complications, which may be antenatal, they may be intrapartum. Fetal growth restrictions, congenital abnormalities, they may all contribute to stillbirths. As we know, stillbirth rate is a key indicator of quality of care during pregnancy and childbirth. And amongst the total 1.19 million stillbirths which took place in 2019, 56% were antepartum while 45% were intrapartum. So one thing to note is that many of these causes, they are preventable. Namely, if we focus on maternal nutrition, focus on good quality antenatal care, good quality intrapartum care, and regular fetal growth monitoring, then most of these causes can actually be addressed. So with this aim of reducing stillbirths, I will take you through what all steps the government of India has taken to actually address the stillbirth rate in the country. Coming to the targets, our national health policy states that the antenatal care coverage has to be sustained above 90%. The skill attendance at birth has to be maintained above 90% by 2025. I must say that most of the states in our country, they have actually achieved this figure. We have good antenatal care coverage in most of the states, although there are many who are yet to reach this figure, but then we are gradually hoping for these numbers to be attained very soon. As far as MMR, the NHP goal states MMR to be achieved below 100 by 2020, while the SDG goals states it to be 70 by 2030. For the stillbirths, we do have our NHP goal, which states that it has to be achieved in a single digit by 2025. And the India Newborn Action Plan also targets achieving stillbirth rate in a single digit by 2030. The various service provisions, the various maternal health program, and the focus interventions which the government has rolled out across the country, they have been enumerated in this slide. The service provisions, including the provision of quality of care, is well inbuilt in the programs like Janani Suraksha Yojana, Janani Shishu Suraksha Karikram. These were actually the programs which actually improve the institutional delivery in the country to a large extent. Then we have the PMSMA program, the Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan, which is focused on diagnosis and tracking of high-risk pregnancies. We have the Surakshit Matritva Ashvasan. We have the Lakshya, the quality certification for labor room and maternity OTs. We have the midwifery initiative, which is a very new program. We have been providing money to the states. We have been there have been budgetary allocations for infrastructural upgradation to upgrade the FRUs, the first referral units, the maternal and child health wings, the obstetric HDO ICU for women who need critical care during pregnancy and childbirth. We have the provision of delivery points in the form of BMOC and CMOC centers. We are also conducting capacity building trainings and augmentation of HR by the provision of providing skill trainings in the like SBA training, CMOC, BMOC training, SALSAS, Daksh and Dakshta. So this is a quality of care triad which states that the structural and process interventions can actually lead to an outcome. This is basically based on the Donovan model, which states that the structural interventions may be in the form of improvement of the HR, the drug supplies and service provision, the processes in the form of ensuring training, quality training for the staff, the infection prevention measures. These all can result in an improved outcome, which ultimately has to be monitored by collecting data, by reviewing it, and by again going through the PDCA cycles. So as I spoke about the service provision, we have two very important enabler schemes under NHM, which are the JSY and the JSSK. I'll talk briefly about them. The JSY, which was aimed to promote institutional delivery, launched back in 2005. It is basically a direct benefit cash transfer scheme for those women who undergo institutional delivery. And during financial year 2021, more than 1 crore beneficiaries have availed the benefit of JSY scheme. Talking about JSSK, so JSSK was launched in 2011 and it provides free of cost service provision to all the pregnant women and all the sick infants who are visiting a healthcare facility. The purpose of JSSK is to reduce out-of-pocket expenditure. So there is provision of free drugs, free diagnostics, free blood, free delivery, including cesarean section with no user charges, free entitlement for sick infants as well. For 2021, more than 1.29 crore beneficiaries have been registered under JSSK. They have availed the benefits. Coming to the PMSMA program is a highly focused program to provide assured, comprehensive, quality antenatal care, detection of high-risk pregnancy, and provision of diagnostics during pregnancy, including an ultrasound scan for women who are preferably in the second and third trimester of pregnancy. As we all know that high-risk factors generally are detected during the second and third trimester of pregnancy. This program is conducted throughout the country on 9th of every month at the designated PMSMA centers. Till date, we have more than 2.84 crore antenatal checkups which have been conducted under this program. And we have detected more than 23 lakhs HRPs, high-risk pregnancies, have been identified. And throughout the country, there are more than 18,000 centers which are providing PMSMA services. So these are the glimpses of the PMSMA services being provided to the patients who are visiting the center, including the physical examination, the ultrasound exam, scan, the counseling services, yoga and pranayam sessions, and the provision of free medicine and diagnostic services. Suman is an overarching umbrella. It's a newer initiative of Government of India, which was launched recently. As recently as last year in 2019, it was launched. The operational guidelines were launched last year itself. So it is a highly ambitious program that provides assured, dignified, no cost and zero tolerance for denial of services to every woman and newborn visiting the public health facility, including in tribal areas. So the beneficiaries include all pregnant women, mothers up to 6 months post-delivery, and all the sick infants. So across the country, we have been encouraging states to notify their Suman facilities, the facilities on the basis of the kind of services they are providing. They may be providing basic services, the BMOG services, or the CMOG services. Accordingly, they have been classified. So these are our Suman notified facilities with the who are proudly erected. They have proudly erected the Suman logo atop their roofs. So what are the attributes of a Suman facility? The goal is to have zero preventable maternal and newborn deaths and provide for high quality of maternity care delivered with dignity and respect. So the Suman program ensures service guarantee with no denial of services, respect for women's autonomy, dignity, feelings, and choices. There is a mechanism of client feedback to be reported through Mera Aspatal. A robust grievance redressal mechanism is very well in place. It is very important. Emphasis on maternal and infant death reporting and reviews. Also, there is provision of Suman volunteers which are picked up from the community, and to award to these selected Suman champions who do some extraordinary work out of these Suman volunteers. Community linkages and support, as well as intersectoral convergence, support from PRIs, from self-help groups. So as I said, that there has to be a service guarantee. All the maternal health programs and initiatives are covered under Suman for the mother as well as the newborn. Maybe GSSK, GSY, PMSMA, Lakshya, Ma, care for sick and small babies, home-based care. Then again, health system strengthening in the form of strengthening of MCH wings, obstetric HDU, ICU, NBSU, SNCUs. Also creation of centers of excellence. Monitoring and reporting via service guarantee charter, ensuring availability of MCP cards, safe motherhood booklet. Communitization is a very important part of Suman initiative. We are making community as a bhagidar, community to look after the mother as well. In case the referral transport is not available through the facility, then it is the responsibility of the community to come forward to voluntarily support and assure a referral transport for the mother, so that any possible cause of death is done away with, and she reaches the facility on time, and all the risk factors or the possible futuristic potential risk factors are mitigated. Incentives and awards I have already explained, and also the IC activities. So also there is provision of quality certification for these Suman notified facilities under this Suman program. Coming to a very ambitious program, which is the Lakshya program, which is a multi-pronged strategy which aims at finding gaps in the labor rooms and maternity OTs against a fixed checklist and norms which are well defined, and to fulfill those gaps in a given time period. And to fulfill these gaps, the overall aim is to improve the quality of care during delivery and immediate postpartum period, thereby ensuring a high quality intrapartum and postpartum period for the mother and her newborn, as well as providing respectful maternity care for the mother and the baby. Overall outcome is reduction in the maternal and newborn morbidity and mortality. The interventions under Lakshya, they are targeted at improving the quality during labor, during postpartum period, which are also helpful in reducing the stillbirth rates across the country. So as I said, it is targeted at the maternity OTs and the labor rooms. So this is the program framework, which aims at assessment of the facility, improvement, the improvement in the form of structural or process improvements, the enablers in the form of labor room standardization, the human resource strengthening, the quality circles. We have the rapid improvement cycles also, depending on the gaps which are identified. The outcome is that there is labor room certification or the maternity OT certification, as well as improvement in the indicators pertaining to newborn and maternal health. Midwifery initiative is something very new in our country, although we are working, we are going in a very good direction as to we are aiming to create a cadre of nurse practitioners in midwifery who are highly skilled in accordance with the ICM competencies. The overall aim is to reduce over-medicalization and promote natural birthing, to provide respectful maternity care, as well as to decongest the higher level of healthcare facilities, thereby providing the specialists, the obs and gynecologists to focus on the high-risk complicated cases. So these NPMs, it is envisaged that they will be stationed at midwifery-led care units, wherein they will be delivering their services to the low-risk mothers. So we have right now the country is in the process of conducting trainings for the midwifery educators, which will soon be followed by the trainings for the NPMs. So these are the pictures of midwifery-led labor room, the MLCU, which is functional in Gujarat. On the left side is the lady, the midwife is providing antenatal exercises. She is assisting her in doing antenatal exercises to this pregnant lady. For infrastructural strengthening also, we have the provision of maternal and child health wings in the country. At present, we have more than 600 MCH wings throughout the country with different bed strengths. The obstetric HDU ICU, we have the provision of these under NHM. For those mothers who are suffering from life-threatening obstetric complications, who are critical, we have dedicated ICUs in all medical colleges. It is also proposed to have these obstetric ICUs in medical college hospitals as well. And we have almost 230 obs HDU ICUs throughout the country, out of which around roughly more than 130 or so are functional at present. The concept of first referral unit is that if it is equipped to provide round-the-clock services for emergency obstetric and newborn care, and the one crucial factor is availability of specialists in the form of physicians, surgeons, most critically the obstetricians and gynecologists and anesthetists, which is most essential for operationalization of these FRUs. The idea is that to reduce the travel time or the road time for a pregnant woman who is actually in need of emergency services in the form of cesarean sections and other medical interventions. Also, it will provide for the care and emergency care of sick children, blood storage facility, lab services, and referral transport services are also characteristic features. Besides providing the obstetric care, the family planning services and other services are also a feature of FRU. So these are our state-of-art MCH wings and obs HDU ICUs. As I explained, we have capacity building trainings which aim to improve the skills of healthcare providers. We are providing money budget under NHM to all the states uniformly to provide trainings to our in-service doctors, the ANMs, the staff nurses, to enhance and their skills and do capacity building. These trainings may vary from as a capsular training of Dakshta, which may last for 3 days, to trainings like nurse practitioner midwife, which may last for up to 18 months. So these are the trainings which are being imparted. So this is the, okay. So for monitoring and reporting of stillbirths, we have these operational guidelines for establishing Sentinel stillbirth surveillance system, wherein a stillbirth review performer has been provided and standard operating protocol for stillbirth surveillance. This particular guideline was released by the ministry in June 2016. The reporting tools for stillbirths are in the form of reporting as well as monitoring with the help of SRS system as well as the HMIS, which is the Health Management and Information System. Dr. Sumita Ghosh, madam, might be telling more about it. So with all these interventions, a few more slides on the increase and improvement in the maternal health indicators, which indirectly reflect upon the stillbirth rates also. So there has been a progressive increase in the ANC coverage. If I compare an FHS 3 with an FHS 4, the ANC coverage has increased, the 4 ANC coverage has increased up to 51.2%. As per the NFHS 5 data, which is partially released for only 19 states, it is also showing remarkable improvement in most of the states. As per the HMIS, if I compare 10 years data, there has been a significant improvement. We have reached almost to 97%. The institutional deliveries have jumped up high from NFHS 1, which was way back in 92-93. We have reached a figure of 78.9 in NFHS 4, and we are very hopeful of getting very good numbers in the upcoming NFHS 5 survey data, which may be released soon. As far as HMIS is concerned, we stand at 94.5% today as per the 1920 HMIS data. Stillbirth attendant delivery is a very important factor. It actually determines the quality of care, the quality intrapartum service and the postpartum service depends on the attendant, the skilled birth attendant. And as per the NFHS survey, compared to the yesteryears, as per NFHS 4, we are at 81.4%. The monitoring system, the HMIS says, mentions it to be 95.4% as per the 1920 data. So coming to the way forward, what lies ahead, that we have to improve the quality of care through rigorous strengthening of our existing programs. We have to focus on the antepartum as well as intrapartum care of the pregnant women so that any potential causes are not missed out. Monitoring and reporting, improving the healthcare workers' skills on reporting of fetal deaths and perinatal audits is very important. Continuity of care has to be maintained as well as management of high-risk pregnancy. It is the high-risk pregnancy cohort which requires specific interventions, and universal health coverage is a non-negotiable agenda. So with this, I would like to wind up and thank you everyone. So thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Padmini, for giving us an overview of government schemes which can improve quality of life, quality of care, and emphasizing on the intrapartum stillbirths. I remember talking to you, you gave me the suggestion, and we have a separate now committee for looking into this aspect, because you told me more than 50% of the stillbirths are in India are because of poor quality of care intrapartum. And also for suggesting that I should be taking in the registry people from all parts of India, otherwise my data would be skewed. So thank you so much. And I really feel privileged and proud that two top government officials are with us today. And it really, speaks volumes about your graciousness and your passion and your concern about both maternal health and child health. Thank you so much for being here today with us. Dr. Asna, please.
Yeah, just I would like to interrupt. Maybe Dr. Sumita Ghosh, madam, may not be able to join as of now. She has been called for a high-level meeting.
I am here.
Okay, fine that you have joined. Okay, all right, ma'am.
I feel humbled to invite Dr. Sumita Ghosh to speak. She's the Additional Commissioner in Charge, Child Health. Adolescent Health, Safe Abortion Services, Aspirational District Program, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. She's a pediatrician by education and has 35 years of experience in clinics, training, and administration in government. She's previously looked after several programs like the Family Planning Program, Maternal Death Surveillance and Review Program, various training programs in the ministry. She is the technical lead in the ministry, providing support in national level policy, program implementation, monitoring, and supervision. She is member of various national expert groups in the country and also coordinating with various EPICS technical support agencies working on various programs. Many national level guidelines have been released under her guidanceship for child health, maternal health, and family planning programs. Welcome, Madam Sumita Ghosh.
Thank you for such nice introduction. I am really very, very glad to be part of this inaugural program of the Stillbirth Society of India. Dr. Neelam, Dr. Asna, Dr. Tamkeen, Dr. Aisha, Dr. Nitika, Susana, Dr. Claire, our ministry colleague, Dr. Padmini, Dr. Aziz from Fernandez Hospital. So it's a nice, to be part of this group who are so dedicated and committed towards preventing a very, very, very neglected area of our healthcare system, I should say, the stillbirth. So I would center my talk around perinatal birth actually, because Dr. Padmini very, very elaborately and comprehensively, she dealt with all the aspects from, the scenario, the, programs, the, what should be the way forward. So I would like to say, I'll like to start by saying, though Dr. Neelam has already in her very emotional introductory speech, she said that, which I wanted to say, that this is, stillbirth is an area, which is actually a pregnancy outcome, which is a loss. Like it's a loss of the child, it's a loss of the expectations, it's a loss of the pregnancy, and often it is a loss in history also. No one remembers, like everywhere it is wiped out. So that is the saddest part, because every stillbirth I find it is a child lost early. It is a child who has not seen the light of the day. So it is actually child death. And but nowhere it gets recorded. There are very, very little priorities given to this, very little data, very little mention anywhere, as was already mentioned out, no target in many of the indicators. So this is area where if we improve the perinatal mortality, that is the stillbirth as well as the early neonatal mortality, if we look it in a composite way, then we think we can prevent many of these preventable mortalities. These are all of them are often preventable. So it is a very, this perinatal mortality is a very, very important indicator. It is a very sensitive indicator of quality of care during pregnancy, during childbirth, immediate postpartum care, as well as of equity. As Sushan already said, that equity is a very important aspect. All the stillbirths, mostly they are 95% are happening where the equity is less, in the disadvantaged part of the society. And it is very sensitive, and it is a indicator which shows the empathy of the healthcare system, because your empathy is most obvious when you empathize with something which is not material, something which is a loss. So that way, our health system sensitivity to deal with it, stillbirth, that shows us, how mature our system is. So in that respect, perinatal mortality, it is, we know early neonatal mortality is almost, 50-60% of under 5 mortality. If our under 5 mortality is 36 per 1,000 live birth, the early neonatal mortality is around 18 per 1,000 live births. So it's half. And stillbirth and perinatal mortality, they go hand in hand, like more or less they are, one is, they are interchangeable. The causations are mostly the same. The management is mostly the same, and the redressal actions, the measures to prevent them are also the same. So we must take them as an unit, so that stillbirth and early neonatal mortality, often which are interchangeable. When we try to measure early neonatal mortality, often they are shifted to stillbirth to avoid accountability. And when we want to try measure stillbirth, many of them are shown as early neonatal mortality. It is like a matter of time, matter of often a very few hours. The difference is only few hours. If the mother reaches early to the facility, or the interventions are given early, then it is a early neonatal, the child is born. If it is not given early, the child is dies in utero, it is born dead. So that way we must see as a composite unit. And perinatal mortality, stillbirth, India is one country where the national health policy has kept a target of reduction. It has reduced quite a lot. SRS says it is 4, but again, it says in the same report, it says that there are many issues of reporting, many issues of capturing stillbirth as such. So even if we take higher figures, the national goal is to reach the single digit stillbirth rate. So looking towards that, already Dr. Padmini, she has thoroughly explained what are the measures government are actually supporting, implementing, and they have given results. All our rates are coming down. NFHS 5, which is due to come, we are very hopeful it will give us a very, it will show us the result of all these efforts which are being taken. Challenges, if we can see, what are the challenges? The challenges are start from the very definition. I think the society which is coming up today, they should seriously look into it. It has to be simple. We cannot make it so complicated, like, making it weight-based and then gestational age-based. We should have a, we should come down to a, single criteria, so that our measurement gets easy, because health system will be able to then capture and define it, how to do it. So definition part, we must come to a same page, what is a stillbirth. Then the data. The data, as already has been discussed, it is very, very, often it is not reported, or they are interchangeably reported with neonatal deaths, or, they don't come into picture. So having the data is very important. Our SRS also said so, that it is very difficult to capture this. So we are coming out with composite software, so where we would like to capture maternal, perinatal, all kinds of dates. So I am very hopeful that stillbirth, the actual magnitude will be caught in it when it is truly, properly, and universally implemented. the antenatal part, because most of the, apart from some few causative action, causations like congenital anomalies and all, mostly it is stillbirths related to either pregnancy care, the maternal health like nutrition, anemia, any prevailing disease, any comorbidity, any infections that has happened, and also the obstetric factors like any pregnancy complication, any intrapartum complications in childbirth, or immediately after birth during asphyxia. So these are the causes where we can intervene. And already we are in maternal health, we are doing many programs, but the programs is something which we do, which we think we deliver. But one very important aspect I feel which can actually help reduction of stillbirth is the education of the mother. The counting, very simple method of counting the fetal movements, which gives an early indication that the fetus is not doing so well. So if that is told to them repeatedly, properly, and they are made to count that, so many can be, stillbirths can be early, the fetal, the fetal position, the fetal what is the status of the fetus, so that if it is detected early, many of them can be prevented. So this is one very important area I would request Dr. Padmini to take up very seriously, and also the Stillbirth Association, which is being born today. So let them take it up very seriously. Another is that the referral mechanism. When we say that stillbirths, good antenatal care, good high-risk detection, good management of high-risk cases will reduce the number of stillbirths. At the same time, already pointed out by Susan, I think, that many of them are sudden. Many of them are unexplained. Many of the stillbirth happen, for where the reasons are not known. So in that cases, if the mother get the early inklings that this fetal movements are less, fetus is not moving much, and they can be immediately transported to a care, I think many of the stillbirths can be really be avoided, because these factors, like even with the best kind of obstetric care, pregnancy care, early detection of reduction of fetal activities, they can prevent a lot of stillbirths and early neonatal mortality. Third is these actions, referral actions, and we must understand that this loss, fetal loss, which happens, that has a big psychological impact on the mother. So maternal care, what is needed after postpartum, that needs to be extended to stillbirths, also even more so the psychological impacts, the kind of support these mothers need. That part is very important. Often we talk about postpartum depression, often we talk about many postpartum counseling, psychology, but often this part is ignored. The stillbirth, the mother losing the baby, how she copes with it. So that again is an area I would request that we should look more into it. The another part is that the mothers are often after pregnancy, after childbirth, they get so many, they get leave, they get paid, leave from work and all. Often that is not done for stillbirth. So these are few areas, that psychological and social support areas we must look into. For prevention of early neonatal mortality, we have several programs. The AINA program is totally based on this concept of pregnancy care, and then followed by intrapartum care, immediate newborn care, essential newborn care, emergency newborn care, and then the sick newborn care. So all these pillars, they actually can bring down the perinatal mortality. The actual recording, reporting, these are very important. Our software, which is coming out, which I think will go a long way. What I would like to say, the capacity of the providers and the sensitivity and the quality of their care during childbirth as well as in the immediate postpartum period. That is very important. I would say that with these words, I really appreciate this initiative which is happening, and we will go a long way with this is government aim also, that how we can, really prevent all these preventable losses which are happening in spite of, having put in so much of efforts into maternal health and neonatal health. I would request that whatever is being done here to be, we integrate our efforts, and I do believe that the various schemes like midwifery schemes, the delivery by midwives, and also we have this we have SNSU in 914 districts now for sick neonates and preterms. So if they can be immediately transported, if the care is given immediately at the labor room as well as in the, these units, so this will bring down we have NBSUs also, newborn stabilization units also in all around 2,500 places. So all these should combine our efforts, the government sector as well as, our others, our professional bodies. We should all come together for prevention of this very, very, very important issue. And the thing we should look into is surveillance. We should be vigilant. We should see what is happening, why it is happening, and then do the reformative actions. Thank you very much for this, for talking to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sumita. You being so busy, still you took out time, and this shows your passion and commitment. I'm sure with your help, Stillbirth Society of India will definitely be able to address this neglected topic much better. Once again, thank you so much from the whole team. Thank you.
Ma'am, can I just add something? Thank you, ma'am. I just want to say that the way you connected stillbirth to neonatal death, and you gave us, much food for thought when you emphasized that every stillbirth is a baby loss. So thank you very much for giving us this slogan. And for being here with us.
Start by doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and suddenly you're doing the impossible. On this note, I would like to invite my colleague, Joint Secretary, Stillbirth Society of India, and the editor of our inaugural newsletter, Dr. Aisha Ahmed, to show us a few glimpses of the newsletter and conclude the session with vote of thanks. Dr. Aisha.
Thank you so much, Dr. Asna. I'll just share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Honorable Chief Guest, Dr. Sumita Ghosh, Additional Commissioner, Child Health India. Guest of Honor, Dr. Padmini Kashyap, Assistant Commissioner, Maternal Health India. International expert, Ms. Susanna Hopkins-Leisure, Board Chair, International Stillbirth Alliance. President, Stillbirth Society of India, Dr. Neelam Agarwal. Our most valued guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good evening to all. And it is my privilege to be introducing the inaugural newsletter of the Stillbirth Society of India. So it introduces how the SBSI came into existence, its mission and its objectives, messages from the president, the vice president, all our advisory board members, the Parent Voice Initiative, the different working groups, committees. And most importantly, there are 2 articles which discuss the most relevant and pressing needs in prevention of stillbirth: the workup in a pregnancy affected by stillbirth, and the importance of training caregivers in different aspects of perinatal pathology. We believe that if our presence can bring a ray of hope to someone, can alleviate suffering for someone, a purpose of being caregivers is justified. Thank you so much. And with this, I would like to deliver the vote of thanks. Again, it's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. It is indeed a big day for all of us, the first society in India dedicated to stillbirth prevention, and a historic inauguration online. On behalf of the society, I express my heartfelt thanks to our chief guest, Dr. Sumita Ghosh, who has spared her valuable time, despite her busy schedule, to encourage us by gracing this occasion. And it speaks volumes of her passion for improving maternal and child health in India. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Padmini Kashyap. Her advocacy for improvement in quality of intrapartum care is a motivation for all of us obstetricians. And we are really grateful for your presence today, ma'am. I want to thank Ms. Susanna Hopkins Leisure for her inspiring keynote address and for supporting us in this endeavor. Dr. Neelam Agarwal, our first president, has been a guiding force throughout. It is through her efforts that the society has shaped in this manner. On behalf of the Stillbirth Society, I want to thank her for her constant motivation, enthusiasm, and guidance. Dr. Nuzhat Aziz took on the baton as the first vice president of the Stillbirth Society. On behalf of the society, I want to express my appreciation for her suggestions and encouragement, which give us the strength to carry on. I would like to express my gratitude to our patrons, Dr. Evita Fernandez and Dr. Pratima Mittal, international and national advisory board members, committee chairs and secretaries for agreeing to contribute with their expertise, experience, and passion in this humble and noble endeavor. I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Tamkeen Khan, who is the heart and soul of the society, who had the vision and the courage to take on such a mammoth endeavor and to involve us all in this effort. Her boundless enthusiasm has enabled us to reach a platform where we can contribute to decreasing suffering due to stillbirth. And I would like to express my gratitude to all the esteemed members who have blessed us with their presence today and contributed to making this inauguration a success. Special thanks to the organizing team for today's event, our digital partner, ClearNet, website developers, Agreed Technologies, and volunteers. This ceremony would not have been successful without them. Thank you so much. I will stop.
Just Dr. Neelam.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
So can we
is it over? I think we should log out.
Yeah, thank you so much. You can log out.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Thanks a lot. Thank you all. Nice meeting you all.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Let us be in touch.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you everyone for taking out time and be with us. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you, Susan.
Thanks, then. Thank you.
Thank you.